quick note to let you know this evening I'm going to talk about going to San Diego in 1969. I left LaSalle and drove to San Diego. I had never been west of the Mississippi. It was a long trip, alone, and my mother had always talked about the gold in California. When I hit the California-Arizona border, the California roads were paved with golden reflectors down the center line of the road. That was something new to me, and it reminded me of what my mother said about the gold in California. When we got there, I purchased a small 3-bedroom house on Arlene Street in San Diego, and I always said that one move I doubled my house payment. We had a little patio out back in a fenced yard. David was in the Cub Scouts, and he came home with a Boy Scout homemade downhill racer and had to take care of keeping that in our garage. We never won any races, but it was fun. David played the bass fiddle in the school band and participated in the honors band in the schools of San Diego. Karen went to an elementary school close by, and Tim was only a few months old when we arrived. I built a playhouse and swing in the backyard for them and always worried that Tim would fall off when he climbed up into the house, but no injuries. Years later, we moved back to San Diego and had to remove the playhouse, and Tim said it looked a lot larger when we were there before. We attended the Covenant Baptist Church in Claremont, and I was on the bus maintenance team and helped with the electrical problems and had to wire up the alarm buzzer on the back door one time, and the drill bit went through some cables. And I spent more time repairing the cables than I did for the buzzer installation. We took a group of boys, the Royal Ambassadors, to the Sequoia National Park. The power steering cable V-belt broke, and steering was really difficult. Finally, we got a new belt and all was okay. Our entertainment in San Diego was to visit new homes on an open house on Sunday afternoon. One house we visited had a solar installation using hot and cold circulating water through tubes on the roof, 2 500-gallon tanks under the garage, one for hot for heating and one cold for cooling. We would also visit SeaWorld and the zoo frequently. We had the annual passes. The driver of the zoo bus would cruise by the freeway and he would say, "Look over to the right, you will see the most dangerous animal in all North America, the North American road hog." And then we would go around the circle and he would see a school, and he would point out another dangerous animal, the North American teenager. We visited Forest Lawn Cemetery in Glendale near Los Angeles. It's a big place where the movie stars are buried. There's a stained glass window of the Last Supper, and there's a 195-foot wide painting of the crucifixion showing the rooster crowing and the story that when they dug the hole for the cross of Jesus, they dug up the skull of Adam. The crucifixion painting by Polish artist Jan Stika was originally bought by Stika to the Louisiana Purchase Exposition in St. Louis in 1904. Because of its massive 190-foot long, 45-foot wide high size, he was unable to display it and was forced to return to Poland without it because he could not pay the duty to take it home. Stitka, whose self-portrait is seen in the painting as the figure of Paul, died in 1925 without ever seeing his painting again. The crucifixion was stored in several warehouses over the years until Forest Lawn founder Herbert Eaton and his colleagues located it at the Chicago Opera Company in 1943. Forest Lawn purchased it after the World War II and built a hall of the crucifixion for the express purpose of displaying Stitka's work. It opened on Good Friday in 1951. The Last Supper, a brilliant stained glass recreation of Leonardo da Vinci's famous painting, is located in the Great Mausoleum at the Forest Lawn in Glendale. The founder, Dr. Herbert Eaton, was traveling through Italy in June of 1924, and he conceived the idea of recreate the Leonardo masterpiece in stained glass. He had seen the badly damaged original and was concerned that it was going to be lost forever. Dr. Eaton also visited the lovely Cathedral of St. Francis in Assisi and its amazing stained glass. And there he heard about a talented woman, Rosa Motoretti, who came from a family with a long history of creating stained glass. Dr. Eaton met with Mrs. Moretti and offered her the commission, which she accepted. The work of art took nearly 7 years to complete, 3 years longer than Leonardo's original. Moretti carefully brushed the glass with a variety of paints and had them carefully mixed with powders. And then she repeatedly fired the pieces in the kiln to fuse the paint to the glass. This process can lead to a lot of shattered glass, and several of the figures had to be remade more than once. In particular, the figure of Judas broke 5 times before she was able to finish the project. The skill to create such a large piece is not simply artistic. The design to hold a 30-foot long, 15-foot high that can hold up its own weight requires a great engineering skill as well. To fully appreciate the grandeur of this brilliant stained glass recreation, see it in person at the great mausoleum in Forest Lawn. We would also visit Knott's Berry Farm. It's sort of like a little Disneyland, but more country. I was assigned to the Development and Training Center, DATC, in San Diego, California. It was located at the 32nd Street Naval Station in San Diego. My duties at DATC included an officer in charge of the electrical schools. First of all, I went to the 11-week engineer officer training course, which included training on board the USS Frank Knox DD 742. There's an interesting story about the Frank Knox. Her nickname is Knox on the Rocks. She was steaming off in Japan. A young ensign had to watch a midnight watch. He got up, cleaned up, ready to go on the bridge, put his red goggles on so he could see better, and he got up to the bridge. The starboard lookout told him there's something off the starboard side. He took his binoculars and looked over. Sure enough, there was something out there. It looked like a tidal wave. He'd been reading the book Tsunami, so he turned into the wave, only to run aground hard on the reef. The collision tore the bottom out of the ship from the bow all the way back to the number 2 fire room. The Navy was really embarrassed about this and finally figured out how to pump the ship full of styrofoam, floated it off, and got it back to Japan. The Japanese shipyard workers carefully removed the styrofoam. She was fixed up better than before. When I went on board, the bottom was like a brand new ship. We trained in that ship, learning how to light fires in the boiler, turn on the turbo generators, start the main engines, do all the things that one does to operate the engineering plant of a destroyer. After completion of the engineering officer's course, my duties was to stay there and take over as the officer in charge of the electrical schools and the weapons school. I was given a collateral duty. My collateral duty was to take care of the foreign officers that came to our school for training. And we had a program of teaching the foreign officers about the United States government. I arranged to take the officer to the city attorney's office. The city attorney would talk about how the laws are made. We would then go to the city council meeting and meet with the mayor, who would welcome them to the city. And then I would take them to the marshal's office, and we had arrangements with the federal judge that he would have recess and invite the foreign officers to meet with him in his chambers. He would tell him what his responsibilities were and how the laws were made and how they were enforced. And then we would go over to the city jail and go up to the 4th floor into the trustees' lunchroom. And there we would meet the jailer and have coffee and donuts. The jailer would explain the operation of the jail. Note, in order to get in, we had to go through locked doors several times. One trip I had 2 Chinese officers, an elderly gentleman who did not understand my English very well. The other was a younger man, and he was able to understand me pretty good. After we came out of the jail, the older man said, "Today I be very worried." I asked him why he was very worried. He said, "In my country, you never go into Yale. You go into Yale, you never come out." I would take the officers to Disneyland, and I would usually take my son and daughter, David and Karen, with us. David has been to Disneyland about 14 times. At Disneyland, we would always go see Moments with Mr. Lincoln. As you may well know, it's a mannequin that would stand up and recite the Gettysburg Address. The foreign officers always liked Disneyland and were excited to learn anything about America. My commanding officer asked me what I was going to do for the Mexican officers, telling me that this was the first time that Mexico had sent officers for training, as they had been purchased 2 destroyers from the United States. He wanted me to do something special for them, telling me to take them to Sacramento, to the state capital, show them around. We were going to Sacramento with a couple of Mexican officers and a Korean officer. North of San Diego, on Interstate 5, there's a Border Patrol checkpoint. We called it Checkpoint Charlie, checking for illegal aliens. I explained to the Mexican officers and the Korean officer that we would be stopped and they would have to show their IDs. And when we got there expected to stop, we were raved on through. Right on through. 2 Mexicans and 1 Korean in civilian clothes, and they didn't even see them. We were traveling up Interstate 5 about 75 miles an hour, and the Korean officer shouted and waved, "Hey, that car, the ambassador from Korea to Mexico." I told him to write a note in Korean and held it up to the window, and I honked my horn, and the Korean looked at the note and nodded and pulled off at the next exit. There were 8 of us around a big table. I was sitting next to the ambassador. Everyone ordered coffee. The ambassador said he was driving and he wanted a milkshake. I told the waitress I was driving and I wanted a milkshake too. The ambassador asked me if I knew General MacArthur. I told him no, but I know where he is buried at Norfolk, at Virginia, in the MacArthur Memorial. I had been there. Time came to pay, and I had a credit card to pay all the expenses, and the girl came over with the bill. And the ambassador said something to one of the little Koreans that was with him, and the little Korean jumped up and grabbed the bill and paid the bill. The ambassador said, "I always bring a rich man for such things as this." We went on to Sacramento, stopping at the Sequoia National Forest on the way up. It was March, and there was about 4 feet of snow in the woods. The Mexican officer had never seen snow. We had a great time throwing snowballs and having fun in the snow. We came down the hill from the mountain into the San Joaquin Valley. The Korean officer was very interested in the valley. He said, "How long is it?" "Oh, it's about 500 miles long." He said, "Wow, bigger than all of South Korea." We went on to Sacramento and stayed at the McClellan Air Force Base, BOQ. The next day, we went to the state capitol building and were showed around by the governor's aide, a colonel in the National Guard. We then went to Reagan's governor's mansion. We saw all the things in the mansion. Governor Brown didn't like the old mansion, so he lived in an apartment house. The mansion became a tourist trap. One interesting thing was the bathrooms had clawfoot tubs. Reagan's daughter had painted toenails on the clawfoot with red nail polish. Everybody laughed about that. We went on to the Golden Gate Bridge, and there's a Civil War fort below the bridge. Many of you don't know that, called Fort Point. Then we went on to San Francisco, visited Fisherman's Wharf, and then we came back home to San Diego. And after about 18 months at DATC, the Development Training Center commanding officer called me in and asked me what my career goal was. I told him I wanted to be an engineer officer of an amphibious ship or an auxiliary ship. He told me that I needed some 1,200-pound steam engineering experience and I should request an aircraft carrier. I didn't want to go on an aircraft carrier because they are at sea all the time. The very next day, the CO called me and said, "Forget the carrier." And I was told I was going to Vietnam. I said, "You had to volunteer for Vietnam." He said, "I would." He said the detailer already had made plans to send me to Vietnam, and I was told I would be spot promoted to lieutenant and sent to Mare Island, California for training. After language training and SEER training, that's survival, evasion, resistance, and escape training, well, that's another story all by itself. I was sent to ISB Quy Nhon in Vietnam as an advisor to the Vietnamese Navy. Another story, another day. Thanks for today, and God bless you. Don't forget to like and subscribe to my page. God bless. Have a good evening. Be safe out there. May God protect you from the virus. Thank you.